Johnny Depp, have you been following the trial thoroughly or not so thoroughly?
Yeah, it was interesting. On our locals board, the number one request was, please don't spend much time on the Johnny Depp case.
Promise
So
about 5 minutes. What are your thoughts?
I'm just going to have, I can sum it all up for you pretty simply in 4 words. Amber Heard, well, 5. Amber Heard is batshit insane. It's that simple. Amber Heard is nuts. And the question, it's a defamation trial where she accused him of being an abuser. He says that it cost him $50 or $100 million in Hollywood contracts because the allegations were false. The presentation has been chaotic, both in terms of witnesses and opening statements. I caught bits and pieces of it. Nick Rekieta is covering it daily. Emily Baker is covering it daily. So if you're interested in the case, and I think Legal Bites is sometimes covering. I think she's in transit, flying back.
I think she's now dedicated to covering it daily as well. Legal Bites, okay. Alita.
So I think, between Legal Bites, Emily Baker, Nick Rekieta. Nick did a very good summary on his last nightly show. He got to it around the 50-minute mark. God bless Nick. But it was like the first thing, it's like a whole bunch of other stuff. But when he sums it up in like 15 minutes, you get the whole summation. Boom, 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 boom. Very well done. And so basically the one witness was effective. The rest were kind of hit or miss. The opening statements were kind of chaotic. They should have, I think people will be shocked for those that follow it simply from a professional perspective. How witnesses work, how does court work, how does this work? How do lawyers present themselves? Will be disappointed at the mediocrity of the legal counsel in such a high-profile case where they're getting paid large amounts of money. Now, there's probably not almost one of the only things worse than being married to Amber Heard would be to be Amber Heard's lawyer. I've only in my life, luckily, I only had one client that was like Amber Heard. Drove me absolutely insane. The bottom line with the whole story is Amber Heard, like most domestic abusers, is driven by fear. And so her fear was fear of abandonment. And she was constantly imagining Johnny Depp abandoning her. And she reacted by verbally abusing him and then physically abusing him by every means. Throwing things at him, kicking him, hitting him, punching him, you name it. And so, but it's rooted in a fear of abandonment. It's like, imagine a baby for the first 4 years of their life was starved physically. Starved, say, of light or food or certain kinds of nutrients, etc. We would understand their physical limitations the rest of their life. We don't understand when babies are emotionally starved at a young age between the time they're born and 4 or 5 years old. They're neurologically starved. And the net effect of it is they don't know how to mirror emotions. That's why they project so much. Imagine you're 2 years old and you're randomly slapped or randomly hugged, and you have no idea why. It doesn't correspond to your internal emotional state. You don't learn mirroring, and because you don't learn mirroring, you project a lot. And it's what confuses people about why people end up in domestic abusive relationships is the other person, the victim, sees this other side of the person. And so they're often as confused as anyone else is in the relationship. And the abuser doesn't see it for what it is. The abuser thinks that this person's really trying to harm them, and they have to do what they're doing to stop them from harming them, even though, in fact, they're the one inflicting the harm. And she's a classic personality of that. Didn't take long to diagnose that if you watched her or studied her, but evidence came out to that effect this week. The most damning evidence for her are the tapes. The tapes show she's not the abused person. She's the abuser. If I had been Johnny Depp's counsel, it's all I would have played, to be honest with you. Out of, got those tapes introduced or argued for their introduction or inclusion in the opening statement. If they wouldn't allow them in, I would have referred to the tapes. And that only would have highlighted attention to them. And my beginning of my witness testimony would have been those tapes. Rather than, they're trying to do this. So many lawyers think you present evidence in a chronological way. That's not how jurors think. Start out with your most powerful evidence, then finish with your second most powerful evidence. Bookmark it. And tell the jury the story right away. Because of the chaotic nature of the presentation, Amber Heard has countersued Johnny Depp for $50 million in damages. No, I'm sorry, $100 million. She doubled it, of course, because she's crazy. But so if the case is done fairly and correctly, in my view, the facts and the law, Johnny Depp will win. And the damages will be will probably be around $50 million, because that's how much he's lost in a range of movie contracts. That is clearly directly correlated to her. But because of the chaotic presentation, it may be both sides take nothing. I think that's very much a possibility because the presentation has not been clean and neat. by the lawyers for either side. And there is some issue about, she has a technical defense that she never used his name, though everybody knew who she was talking about. And because the question is, how vague are some of her allegations? I mean, she's accusing him of being an abuser. He clearly was not an abuser. But how do you find that? If you ever were verbally abusive, if you ever were verbally insulting or physically violent at all, ever, even in self-defense, is that somehow now mutual and thus her allegations true? I think anyone that listens to those tapes will conclude she's the abuser and she lied, and consequence should follow. I just don't know if the jury will be so confused by that point that they're lost because the jury presentation has been so weak. But for those that didn't know, Amber Heard is batshit insane, and she was the abuser, not Johnny Depp.
She's clearly there's a lot of comments that I've been hearing people make, which and then couple that with a very attractive individual, and then what goes on in private.
Look at that British judge. Listen to those tapes, and as people are going to see, they're going to wonder, what did that British judge do in that case? He was just all goo-goo eyes when he saw Amber Heard, and just, oh yes, she must be. I was like, whoa, buddy. So the British judiciary will be embarrassed by the outcome of this case if it ends up being strongly in Johnny Depp's favor. But I think for those people that don't care about Johnny Depp, don't care about Amber Heard, don't care about the celebrity, I think there's value in watching parts of the case just to see how presentation can be more or less effective if you're a young lawyer interested in the legal system. And to give an example of that, because this is being publicly broadcast, Amber Heard's side was exposed in two different ways. One, the lawyer lied about a witness, said that the witness had liked something on social media during the trial. In fact, it predated the trial. And so Amber Heard's lawyer, and by the way, my experience, abusers always hire the sleaziest lawyers almost all the time. I represented a bunch of victims of domestic abuse. I have throughout my whole life, but I represented a bunch at the beginning of my career where half of my work was representing victims of domestic abuse. And the abuser, I always knew my client's story was likely true when the abuser hired certain lawyers in town. It's like, bingo, that guy's guilty. And so but her lawyers appeared to have lied to the judge and lied to falsify evidence against a witness. And they got caught with one of their people helping out in the trial, helping out Amber Heard, actually going through Twitter and trying to go after anybody saying anything negative about her, and doing a lot of these things in the courtroom, which the court had prohibited. Because it had been broadcast, everybody knew that when the lawyer said, oh, she wasn't here for opening statement, it's right there in the TV camera. So this is the value of broadcasting trials, is it limits the ability of corruption to go unchecked in the judicial process.
No, the broadcasting of the trial is fantastic. I think it should be a rule, not the exception. I'm going to read this Rumble rant from a distance so I can not lose my 2 bars on my phone. Andris Burzins on Rumble says, please, Viva Bars, follow the case 303 Creative versus Elenis. Free speech case accepted to U.S. Supreme Court for this fall, similar to the cake cutter case. Hadn't heard about it. And then there was
I think I'm aware of it. We will debrief it closer to when the oral arguments take place in the case.
Fantastic. And we got Cove Research says Trudeau's son has no sense nor cojones. Pierre would say, WTF are you doing with the charter? Just the wokest locust. Okay, that's very good. I'm going to put my phone by the window so I don't lose my cell reception. Okay, so enough of the Johnny Depp. I know people are getting a little fed up with it, but when Amber Heard is on the stand, if she takes the stand, I might live stream that just to watch it, because I've made predictions.
Well, remember, the body language panel did a great job of breaking down her deposition. And you can look them up. The behavior panel, they've been interviewing recently with Dr. Phil. You can look them up on YouTube as well. They've broken down a lot of great stuff. And they might help me out from time to time in certain things, but they did a great breakdown, and you can see, you can watch yourself to see. Well, you can just listen to the tapes and understand Amber's nuts. If you have any background in the professional aspects of domestic abuse, you recognize it very quickly, the pattern of behavior she's in. Now there's going to be a lot of embarrassing stuff about Johnny Depp come out. So, yeah. I mean, that's the downside too. But what is it became a no-brainer once he kept losing these contracts. His risk from the suit went down, and his reward from the suit went up. as he lost those contracts. If he still had those contracts, it would be dumb for him to be doing this case because of some of the stuff that he unfortunately texted and whatnot.